One episode. Just one episode left until Little Witch Academia comes to an end. And knowing Studio Trigger's track record, we're probably not going to get a Season 2. So we should expect the series to wrap up next week with its final episode. And it's kind of sad. I mean, I've really enjoyed this series. I am really happy so many recommended me this series when, you know, it got announced for an anime. I'm just glad so many recommended it because it's been a very fun ride. And it sucks that it's going to be coming to an end, but as I always say, all good things come to an end eventually. Just it takes time to reach that conclusion. So, enough about the last episode coming very soon. Let's talk about what happened to Akko in this episode. So, Akko, she unlocks the final word, the 7th word. The word that we've all been wondering what the meaning could possibly be. Many of us for the past couple episodes have been saying that maybe the final word has something to do with friendship or whatever, because we know that Croa and Chariot, they had this relationship, they fell out, and maybe that could have been the reason why Chariot was never able to unlock the 7th word, is because she needed to have this, like, bond with her best friend, and that's why she failed. And so many of us assume since, you know, Diana and Akko, they had a very similar bond like Chariot and also Croa had, many assume that since they have now become official friends and they're better friends than what, you know, Chariot and Croa was, we assume that that could be the key to unlocking the final word. But that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. So, the message or the meaning of the final word, from what my understanding is that it's either acceptance or it is forgiveness. It's one or the other, acceptance or forgiveness, and you don't necessarily know which one it is, but regardless, it shows that Akko has moved on. She has changed for the better, and it was a great way to depict Akko's character, kind of like that final bow on top of her development, because if it is all ending next week, like the series, this was a great way to kind of conclude Akko's character development, because with the way this episode was structured, besides all the action, all that, Akko walking up the Chariot and talking with her, that is something we all have wanted to see for a very long time. Even though she's been talking to Ursula Sensei for a while now, since, like, the series began, Akko was unaware of Ursula being Chariot. And so, this is the first time that Akko was able to, like, sit down and chat with someone that she viewed as her idol, her childhood dream. And throughout her journey, all these, you know, different things she's done throughout the series, all of that was to meet Chariot. And so finally, after all this time, Akko achieves her goal. She was able to meet the very person that put her on this journey in the first place, and why she even became a witch in the first place as well. So, after finally meeting her, she basically talks to her, is like, you know, here you go, here's the shiny rod, I said I would give it back, that was like my objective when I first got this, I would give it back to Shiny Chariot. And then also, I wanted to be like you, but I'm not you. I want to, you know, spread happiness around the world, but I don't want to be exactly like you, because I'm not you. And I really like that. It shows that Akko has matured quite a bit, because this is something that has been building up for a long time now, like, especially when Akko was looking at how she could obtain future goals and stuff, and how she could get certain magic power, you know, growing away to make her ridiculous, but she didn't do that, because she wanted to be her own self and go through the trial and error of, you know, just bettering herself over time. And after all of these different things she's went through, she realizes that she doesn't want to be Chariot. She wants to be her own person. She wants to have similar traits to Chariot, like, you know, making people happy, spreading magic out there in the world, and making people just smile. She wants to do that, but she doesn't want to be a carbon copy of Shiny Chariot, which I appreciate that, and it shows that Akko is now taking her own path. She has achieved her goal, and now she's branching off and she's going down a new path, a path to where it's no longer just looking at Shiny Chariot as an idol and she's always chasing after. She's now going down her own path, and her goal now is to make people happy. So, beautiful, beautiful character development that Akko got. It was a great way to kind of wrap up her character, because if this is the final development we're going to get from her character, I'm pretty satisfied. Because, I mean, even though we know for a fact that she's not the best with magic at this moment, we at the very least know she will eventually get good with magic, because look at Diana. Diana is a perfect example of what, you know, Akko is capable of. If, you know, Akko puts her mind to it, she studies and trains and tries to use magic constantly, she'll probably get to the point of Diana, or maybe even surpass her, who knows. So we do know that Akko will eventually get her magic, strong magic. It'll just take a lot of time, maybe a few years, maybe a while, but she will eventually achieve that level. So we already know about that. That's pretty much confirmed, unless Akko dies in next week's episode, which would be kind of fucked up. But I mean, unless she dies, we already know she will achieve her magic. And now knowing she is set out to do her own path away from Shiny Chariot, it's a beautiful way to kind of conclude her character's development. So I'm very satisfied with that, and I'm glad that, Studio Trigger has written such a good character, because I remember when, the series first began, I did like Akko as a character. She was cool and all that, but she had some certain faults about her that I kind of disliked, or I just hated certain things about her while the journey was happening early on in the first half of the series. And now seeing her of how much she has matured and changed and all that, it's so good. Studio Trigger did a good job with Akko's character, and I am proud of them. So, besides that, let's talk about Kroa. So, Kroa, she initiates her endgame with this episode. She initiates her plot to, get the world-changing magic, something that she's been wanting for a very long time. She's dedicated her entire life to obtaining this magic, for she can be the person that can just shape the world however she sees fit. Well, she finally uses this magic she's been collecting for a long time, using emotions from people, and she goes there to where the seal is to unlock it. She unlocks it, of course, and when she gets it, there's just a stick, a floating stick, the stick of truth, so to say. Okay, I know that reference is bad, please don't kill me. But she has this wooden stick she sees, and she grabs it, she's like, what is this? And so she starts flicking it around and all that, and just bubbles come out and stuff, and automatically, her face perfectly summarizes what many might do if they were in her position. If you're someone like Kroa, maybe not evil, let's just say you dedicated your entire life to researching something or obtaining something that's supposedly world-changing magic, something that could change the very foundation of the world, and if you were to see this stick just blow bubbles out of it, you'd be like, did I just waste my life? Like, did I just waste my life away studying and researching how to obtain this, and it was just all for nothing? Just imagine the emotions you would feel inside of you if all that just happened to you. Like, you just realize, like, maybe you wasted your time for decades. You're like, what the fuck? Like, that's messed up. You'll feel utterly crushed. So Kroa's reaction, even though she's the villain in this case, I kind of felt bad for her, because even though she's the villain, I feel bad, because anyone that goes that far for their dreams or what they want, they're willing to spend so many decades for or whatever, and when they finally get there and it's just nothing, I can understand that would probably feel horrible. It would make you feel like shit or worthless or whatever. You wasted your life. And so I felt bad for her in that given moment when she realized that maybe it wasn't what she thought it was. So I was kind of sad for her, but it was a great, like, anticlimactic way to kind of introduce the rod that supposedly can change the world. Now, besides that, though, we also have it to where Akko officially obtains it after, unlocking the 7th word. And when she unlocks it, it's still not as strong as many of us probably thought, because Kroa, she's like world-changing magic. When, Akko flicks it, you have it to where, like, the entire forest comes to life. It looks pretty and all that, the sky clears up. It's pretty powerful, yes. But from what we could see from it, it doesn't seem to be, like, on the scale of maybe all of us were imagining. When I was thinking of world-changing magic, I was thinking of magic that could completely shape the entire world into different directions. Like, I mean, you could literally change the physics of the world, or you could change the landscape completely to where, like, maybe continents are moving or something. That's what I assumed world-changing magic was, and maybe Kroa as well. So when she said that, I'm assuming she felt like, wait a minute, it's still not what I thought it was. I mean, it's world-changing because it does change the world around it, but it's not as strong as we all thought it was. So it makes you question, why would they seal something like this if it's just that small in portion, just being able to, change the forest, make it look pretty, or, open up the sky, make it bright or whatever. Why would they seal that away? There's a lot of questions I have about that, so most likely the final episode will answer this in due time. Anyways, though, speaking of the final episode, there is some conflict that was, introduced at the end of the episode, which is this missile heading straight towards the moon, for what I'm assuming. So, I like the transition with the end of the episode, like, Akko's all happy and all that, everybody's smiling and, having a fun time, and then all of a sudden you just hear this beeping sound in the background, and you see this missile just going up into space, and it switches back to Akko, and you just hear the sound effect once again just in the background. background, and you're like, holy crap, it's just so ominous. When I was watching that scene, I expected, like, to hear a big-ass explosion, like, just to see the entire sky light up, but it didn't happen, and so Studio Trigger left us hanging in the final portion of the episode. So, we don't necessarily know if the missile will go off or not, because it just really depends on where Studio Trigger wants to take the series. I'm going to assume that it's going to be stopped, because final episode next week, but who knows, maybe Studio Trigger wants to throw a curveball, and they'll have a tragic, sad ending, or maybe they'll introduce a season 2. Who knows? I mean, think about it. Like, if that bomb goes off, let's say the moon gets obliterated or something, and it changes the world, and the, people get into a war, because there is still that entire dispute with a war starting up, there is a potential possibility that we might have, a season 2 announced for Little Witch Academia, which would be really cool, because remember, at the end of the day, this is a anime original series by Studio Trigger, so it doesn't have a manga, it doesn't need to follow a light novel, manga, anything like that. It can take any path it wants. They're not bound and restricted by a certain, series, so they can do whatever they want and take it as long as they want. So, who knows, maybe Studio Trigger is setting up for that. I would really be down for that if they set up for a season 2, but we'll just have to see. Like I said, we'll have to see how the final episode is if we do get something like that. Episode did have its references like normal. Usually we have like a Thundercats reference or something like that. And well, with this episode, right at the beginning, there was a obvious Star Wars reference. Like, oh my god, you have to be blind not to see that Star Wars reference. If it wasn't the lightsaber that Chariot was using, it was the sound effects. And if it wasn't the sound effects, it was the entire bridge scene. It was from the Star Wars 1. You're like, bro, like, that's straight up like a scene from Star Wars. And then also the way Crow is like right above, Chariot, and it's like, oh, I have the high ground. That's how it looked like. I'm like, bro, like, this is straight up a Star Wars reference. So, obvious Star Wars reference is obvious. So, Studio Trigger being, reference hungry. I mean, they always do this stuff, like, in every single episode. And I love that. It's very fun and interesting when they do stuff like that. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Chibi out.